What we need to do in the Department of Defense is not unleash new bombing campaigns anywhere in the world, not commit more naval power, not add more ground force to Eastern Europe or anywhere else. We need to look at the reality financially that demands we cut the national defense budget by 50%. And people inside the Washington bubble are delusional. They don't seem to understand just how fragile our economy is. So where does this man Hegseth come from? This is a Fox News talking head who essentially endeared himself to the Trump regime and the current administration by announcing that he is a quote unquote Christian Zionist. Go back and look at the discussion that was held in the conference room of the Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon. On one side of the long table, Hegseth and his quote unquote team. And on the other side is Mr. Netanyahu and his team. And Hegseth opens the meeting by saying, you can see from the team that's around me that we're ready to do whatever Israel needs. We are here for you, and we are prepared to do whatever is required. We're on your team. Okay. Well, that was the critical requirement for anybody to join the administration, whether it's defense or state or anywhere else. That's what you're seeing right here. And you want to broadcast the discussion and what he says. What happened? Well, suddenly Hegseth brings in some other 30-somethings. I'm sure they're nice people. I don't know how much depth they've got, how much experience or understanding. We haven't seen much of that in the last two administrations. Maybe they were very, able people, but eventually they all sat around and told Hegseth, this deal about Israel and war with Iran, that's scary. Yeah, no kidding. We don't know where it's going to go. We have no way to control it. Once we unleash it, how do we contain it? And I think Hegseth and his friends all got cold feet. And then somewhere along the line, somebody in the media found out that Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and potentially Vice President J.D. Vance, another ardent Israel first guy, all of them said, this Iran war, that may not be a good idea. Whoa, that's not what you were hired to do. Hegseth was hired to say, yes, sir, we're ready to go. We're all loaded. Give us the word. That's what he was hired to do. And he's not doing it. So we've fired everybody around him that works for him, ostensibly, not because of this signal chat. I mean, there's no question that was an exercise in stupidity and imprudence, but because of the Israeli connection. So his head's on the chopping block. How much longer he will be there is anybody's guess. Now, people are saying, well, President Trump doesn't want the war. I believe that. The problem is he's not doing anything to stop it. So I don't know what we can expect to happen on Saturday. I don't know what President Trump can expect to happen, but he's made it very clear that if he doesn't get what he thinks is the right deal, he'll go to war.
Hegseth also yesterday said that the people that he fired were because that they were disgruntled employees, that they're under investigation, and this investigation revealed that they've been releasing some information. But then on Tucker Carlson, Dan Caldwell, who, by the way, was in that clip that Gary showed a second ago on that February the 5th deal with Netanyahu, he was in the room with that as a trusted aide of Hegseth. Now here's how Hegseth treated him, and what he claimed was he was fired for cause.
So I just want to be totally direct with you. Did you leak classified information against the wishes of your superiors to media outlets?
Absolutely not.
Did you photograph classified material and then text pictures of that material to an NBC News reporter?
Absolutely not. And I have not spoken to an NBC reporter while at the Pentagon.
Do you know what you've been accused of?
No, I don't. Sitting here right now, myself and Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll, the other two individuals that were escorted out of the Pentagon, initially placed on leave and then fired on Friday, we have not been told as of this recording, one, is there what we were being investigated for? Two, is there still an investigation? And three, was there even a real investigation? Because there's a lot of evidence that there is not a real investigation.
Well,
but
we
again,
can know some things just by the details. So here are a couple. Have you been polygraphed?
No, I've never been hooked up to a polygraph machine since I've been in the Department of Defense.
Okay. Have you given up your private communications devices, your private phone, your phone?
No.
To anybody?
No.
Okay. So that raises the obvious question. I'm trying not to use the F word here because the lying is just driving me insane. You're being accused of leaking classified information, but the people accusing you would have no way of knowing whether you did that or not because they haven't polygraphed you or taken your devices, your private devices.
So you see, Hegseth in front of God and country is saying these guys were under investigation. It proved this and that, and we took this action. And then yet you didn't even take his phone. So how can we believe anything that Hegseth says going forward, especially something about war and peace?
Well, the sad part is that Hegseth has decided that he wants to stay and is going to fight desperately to keep the job. I think that's very clear. There doesn't seem to be any sense of loyalty to any of these subordinates that came in with him. He's loyal to his own survival.
Yeah.
He is no less at risk of being removed than the people that he's already sent on their way for ostensibly making similar comments about perhaps the war with Israel, or war with Iran is not a good idea. And later on, Dan Caldwell, in that interview, makes it clear. He says, I think this is simply because there's a bipartisan consensus on the Hill that they want a war with Iran on behalf of Israel.
You mentioned loyalty. So Dan Caldwell had been with Hegseth and had been associated with him for quite a number of years. I think 7 or 8 or 9, maybe even a decade. And so he was brought in there. He was a trusted aide. He was loyal to the administration. He was loyal to the country. He was loyal to Hegseth. Hegseth then threw him under the bus. Whatever was going on, if it was really about the Iran situation, the question is, who has the heft to convince Hegseth to get rid of one of his most senior and trusted aides? It wasn't the president, apparently. I don't think Trump would have even cared about that kind of stuff. But who outside of the Secretary of Defense, the number 2 guy in the chain of command, to compel him to get rid of somebody he himself brought in?
Well, now you're asking the question of who or of whom behind the curtain is running the show.
That's why I said it's an uncomfortable question, but one that needs to be addressed.
But you've got to look at the people that ran the personnel selection system. And the last time I looked, when they put together the names of people that were being selected to hold key posts, certainly Mr. Lutnick was one of the key players. In fact, I remember him giving an interview in which he told everyone that no one knows more about personnel selection than I do, and then boasted how he had hired 1,500 or 1,000 or more people in the aftermath of 9/11. And, so he's got this under control. Then the interviewing reporter said, well, is anybody advising you? And he said, well, I'm getting a lot of help from Jared Kushner. So I think you start there. Who are the people that had a hand in selecting these people and putting them where they were? Now, if we go back to Hegseth, frankly, under the circumstances, and again, I don't know what Hegseth really thinks. He's obviously put a lot of distance between himself and the people on his staff who urged caution with regard to attacking Iran. So, I mean, he's put a lot of distance there. Is this something that he thought about carefully and was inclined to agree with them? Suddenly discovered, well, the people that put me here say I'm not going to be here long if that's my position. This is a matter of war or no war. This is not a small matter. We're talking about war or no war. This is very serious stuff.